All right, our first of three topics today. The big topic this week, both in New York and nationwide, I'd say, is the quarterback change that the New York Giants have decided on. They are going to Jaxson Dart. He will make his first NFL start on Sunday. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of background on how he got there. And this really goes back to the drafting of Jaxson Dart in the spring and how Russell Wilson had affected the quarterback room that Dart was entering into. They really felt like, over the course of April and May and June, Wilson had affected a lot of positive change in that quarterback room. There were a lot of questions, including from people like me, on what that was going to look like with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and now a rookie in that room. Well, Wilson was able to create a real positive environment in there, and they felt like he played well in the spring. So going into the summer, the decision was made. How do we give the team something it can build around? How do we give the team something to wrap its arms around as we get ready for what's going to be a really challenging start to our schedule? And this decision was made. Let's just go all in on Russell Wilson and see how this goes, and we'll continue to develop Jaxson Dart. So Russell Wilson's a starting quarterback at the start of camp, and Jaxson Dart keeps checking boxes with how his physical skills are translating onto the field, with how he's picking up the offense, with how he's mixing with his teammates. Every box is getting checked. In fact, I'd say mid to late August, they would have felt comfortable starting him in week one. Now, why didn't they start him in week one? I think there are a couple of reasons why. Number one, it'd be much harder to go from Jaxson Dart back to Russell Wilson. And then so by giving Russell Wilson a shot out of the gate, you're not only keeping your word to Russell Wilson and your offense, you're also at least giving that a run. And then if it doesn't work out, it's pretty easy to go to Jaxson Dart. Number two, there's the environment that Jaxson Dart would be walking into. And piece of that is the availability of their left tackle, Andrew Thomas. He was not there week one. He was not there week two. He was out there in week three. And now they feel like they've got the offensive line that they plan to have in place. It gives Jaxson Dart a better chance. It gives the whole offense a better chance. And Jaxson Dart has done everything that they have asked of him, everything that they wanted to see, they've seen. He played fast. The ball came out. Preseason, he stayed late to get extra work in over the course of the last few weeks. He worked on Tuesday, the player's day off, to get himself ready to go for his first NFL start. So everything you want to see from Jaxson Dart, we've seen so far. And now we'll see where this goes. Obviously, there are a lot of questions about Brian Daboll's job security, about Joe Schoen's job security. Now that Jaxson Dart is in there, so much of that will tie to Jaxson Dart's performance. And it doesn't mean that they have to be a playoff team, but it does mean that Jaxson Dart's got to prove to ownership that Schoen and Daboll made the right choice in identifying him and drafting him, and then that they're doing a good job developing him. So that's what you're going to be looking for. Jaxson Dart's thoroughly prepared for this moment. I've talked to people who were with him at Ole Miss. I've talked to people who have been around him who say he's much more prepared for the pros than maybe the reputation a Lane Kiffin quarterback coming from that spread offense would have. Lane Kiffin over the last few years went back to some of the old school West Coast stuff that he had done, back in his USC days. And so some of those old school West Coast principles were mixed into the offense, gets Jaxson Dart a little bit more pro ready. And you can see it in how fast he played in the summer. So they have the utmost confidence in Dart. If they didn't feel comfortable putting him in the game in the first place, they wouldn't have made him the backup. They made him the backup because they did feel comfortable with the idea that if Russell Wilson were to get injured, he would be able to go into a game. And as for where you're looking for improvement, one of the main reasons that the Giants ran out of patience with Russell Wilson and why it was time to go to Jaxson Dart, not just for the good of the organization, but for the good of this specific team and these specific players, was how the team was performing and how Russell Wilson himself was performing on third down and in the red zone, those critical areas. On third down, to this point of the season, through 3 games, Russell Wilson is 15-31 for 193 yards, no touchdowns, a pick, a 54.9 rating, and just 9 first downs. So 9 first downs in 31 attempts. And then Russell Wilson in the red zone, he's 4 of 18 for 16 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, a 39.6 rating, and just 1 first down. So Those two areas, again, as a team, they ranked 31st in both those categories. And Russell Wilson wasn't playing well. That's an area where they need to get better. So if you're talking about the macro, of course, they want to see their first round pick playing quarterback, and get a read on who he is as a player. But on the micro level, it's just about where this team is right now. Check out those third down numbers. Check out those red zone numbers. They'll tell you why this move was made now, and why 4 weeks in the season was the time for the Giants to push the button on the Jaxson Dart era.